Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Story Together tabletop role-playing game podcast. My guest today is the illustrious, the esteemed, the wonderful, the hilarious Chris Duffey, who played Arnold Gamez and, of course, One Giant Leap. He's been a tabletop GM. He's been a tabletop player. He's just a great tabletop guy. Welcome, Chris, to the show.
Thanks for having me, man. Good to see you, man.
It's good to see you, too. Chris, my first question, I was going to put an over-under on how long it would take me to laugh. I would have lost. The under would have hit. Chris,
Yep.
What was your first tabletop role-playing game?
Okay, so that would be with, I was working at, actually, no, even before that. We were in a bookstore with my dad, me and my brother, and we saw a cover of some armored dudes, and we're like, what is that? My dad just goes, oh, that's a warrior and that's a cleric. And I'm like, what's a cleric? He's like, they smash things and they have crossbows. I'm like, that's cool. So we got this like starter set for D&D where everything was like a cardboard cutout in little circles, and me and my brother would play it in our treehouse, or our dad would like DM for us, and we were fighting kobolds. It was great.
Was it like 3.5?
Dude, I have no idea. I was like this was like early 2000s, late 90s.
Okay. So probably not AD&D. You remember THACO. So it's probably like 3.5, somewhere in that vicinity. So
well, to be fair, we rolled dice and our dad did the math. I think that's what was going on.
That's what they're there for. That's what I'm there for with my kids too. So, at the end of the day, you got to do what you got to do. So you get into it. You have your class, you're role playing. When did you realize that you were a world-class role player?
When did I realize when you asked me to do it as a job on One Giant Leap? No, I played with Luke, who is a friend of both me and Ian, and he invited me to play Star Wars Edge of the Empires after work.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we worked at Stop and Shop. We got that, and I really kind of discovered that I like to be performing. I like to be kind of like a character. It's very fun.
Yeah.
I like to get into that, and that I get more wild. I get to use accents and stuff, and some are good, some are terrible, but it's very fun, and it's always been fun.
So are you coming on the podcast to confirm that Stop and Shop is a hotbed of tabletop role-playing game talent? Is that what we're trying to say?
Stop and Shop is a hotbed of... Wham! Stop and Shop is a hotbed of D&D players and spiders.
I'm sure.
And spiders.
And spiders?
Yes.
Should we dig into that a little? Are we talking about metaphorical spiders?
I don't want to talk about the spiders, Ian.
Level 6 spiders.
We discussed this before the show. We're not talking about the spiders.
That's fair. We say that was on your rider of off topic. So excuse me for the lack of professionalism.
My God.
So obviously, luckily for you, you have a really awesome group of friends, where you grew up in Mass, all of which, are really creative, just decent people.
Yeah.
When did you decide that this is a hobby that you wanted to carry with you? Like, what was sort of that inflection point for you as you were playing? Because we all grew up with hobbies that we don't necessarily have now that are 20s, 30s, and 40s, right? When did you decide this is something that you're going to stick with for the long haul? Like, what was that point? Like, what sort of, like, when did the light switch turn on for you?
So I want to say so we had a campaign that was like, Luke introduced me to a lot of like close friends that I still have now, like, and that I'll probably have till like I'm old and gray. And we had a campaign that we called the Hintra campaign, where we were basically in Skyrim mixed with a little bit of Bloodborne, because those are the games you were playing at the time. As
True that.
18-year-olds, 17-year-olds, and that went on for a few years, and that had me intersect with your campaign, which is in the same world.
That is true.
And some other friends, and we kind of just kept zigzagging together and like guest starring in different groups. And I'm just like, I made a group of people that I love, that I admire for their own talents, and that I trust. Luke, for example, is an amazing DM and a great artist. He shows me his work sometimes, and it blows me out of the water every time I've seen it. Our friend Alice is very good. She maintains all these systems in her head like that. Like if I'm DMing and I don't know rules, she'll know a rule and she'll get it perfectly every time.
True that.
She's actually I'm going to do a kind of shout out if that's okay. She's an editor on the website Goonhammer. So anyone interested in Warhammer, Age of Sigmar, 40K, definitely check out Goonhammer. It's a great website.
Awesome.
What else? Yeah, and that like how we came. That's how we kept meeting. That's how we kept going on. Those were our like old fogey poker nights at this point, and we've kept going from like more than 10 years, and I think we're going to keep meeting for another 10.
God willing, right? Well, that's really cool. I mean, growing up, something similar, we had our stories. I think mine probably started a little later in the sense that it became sort of a central point. I was probably in my mid-20s when we really started, as a group anyway, taking it really serious. But
Yeah.
I think, something that you and I share is when you go through a story and you play it over a significant period of time and you have a bunch of good people who actually really care, it's really hard actually not to bond.
Yeah.
Over the experience. It's almost like you'd have to try.
It's like a
in a
trauma
sociopathic way, So, what are some of those moments, whether it's from Hintra, all the campaigns that we've played, other, of Luke's amazing campaigns, what are some of those moments that stick out to you that you get to carry with you? Like, I've often on this podcast, I think I've referred to it like the infinity stone of memories, right?
Yeah.
Like this is now a part of me. It's in my gauntlet.
These are the things
like,
we always come back to.
Yeah. It's like, can you share with the audience a couple of those for you that whether it changed your perspective, whether you thought it was the funniest thing you ever heard, or whether, you're almost in tears because of how amazing it, like what were some of those for you? I'd love to hear a couple.
Some of the highlights. Okay. So let's see. So we'll start in kind of chronological order, I guess, or kind of. One of them was the Hintra campaign. We had a guy, Luke presented this guy called Davos Scorn, a mercenary. Okay. The slimiest character ever.
It's like a Star Wars name.
No, yeah, kind of. But like he was just this, like just war crimes personified. And for some reason, we're just like, hey, he's cool. He keeps winning. We're going to keep this guy on our side. And this dude would never roll lower than a 19 on any roll. And so, like, he sounded like a greasier Matthew McConaughey.
I see.
Anytime, like, we'd be, and he's continued throughout every single campaign of ours since that campaign. So, like, we'll just be like, oh, like, let's infiltrate this place. And all of a sudden we hear, well.
Yeah,
dragged in. And we're like, no!
Not scarred.
And I actually, so that actually goes into another, like, big moment for me. I was running a campaign for the new Warhammer 40K one, Imperial Maledictum. And I love that. I'll gush about that later, too, if you want. And I got to... Luke shows up, and he's this officer in the Imperial Army. And his second-in-command shows up. He's like, good to see you. Well, look who's back. just to hit him with it.
Yeah.
It was great.
That's classic.
Let's see. Another one. Oh, God. You wanted 5, and I can't count.
I don't need 5. I just need ones that stand out. Like, what's on the tip of your tongue? Like, what changed the game for you?
Those two, I would say doing StoryTogether and, like, not knowing what the rules were and hoping no one noticed.
That is one of my favorite clips, dude. Just making up your own rules. Like, it doesn't even matter.
That's in my brain.
Classy alcoholic you were proficient in? Like, what does that even, how do I interpret that as a joke?
I don't know. Like, I don't drink, adorable. So I find, like, a classy alcoholic to be a superpower.
Listen, that's fair. I mean, you're either a teetotaler or you're not. There's not a whole lot of in between, but fair enough. I mean, for your characters, I can think of a lot. I mean, for the audience, we played a story during COVID for about 2 years, Dungeons and Dragons set in the Forgotten Realms. Chris played at first, a complete moron lizard man paladin of vengeance, which was a really powerful character, obviously, if you know D&D, named Gelrek, which he blatantly ripped off from. Now that I know Warhammer Old World, I know who he's talking about.
I was playing Total War at the time.
But I remember when Gelrek matured and met his god in a dream sequence. And Gelrek navigated that in such a beautiful and an elegant way but as a lizard. Like you role played. And by the way, it never, and I talked about this ironically or coincidentally on my last podcast.
Oh,
The bad guys in Neverwinter Nights 1 were 10,000-year-old lizards trying to retake the world. So there is like an element in Forgotten Realms where the lizard's really powerful. So this
I
Zotek, who
do
you again ripped
personally.
off, now that I know this, you literally,
Every
I was
time.
like, man, Chris, look at the lizard names. Chris is, damn.
So can I interject real quick?
Yeah, sure.
I remember I read a campaign where I thought I was super original, like, oh, vampires in ancient Egypt, and like
Yeah.
their soldiers are mummies and skeletons, and
Yeah.
like, oh, like Warhammer. What?
Yeah. Hey, listen, Old World's awesome, man.
There's nothing new under the sun.
Well,
But I'm sorry, I interrupted.
no, it's totally fine. And you role played this lizard journeyman paladin trying to overcome all of these obstacles and save his tribe, talking to his god, at that sort of apex moment of his life. I thought you did a beautiful job. I think there's a lot of those types of moments where I think if you were to sit here and like look at or concatenate a bunch of Chris moments from One Giant Leap, a lot of people would take 9 out of 10. They'd be funny. They'd be hilarious, right? Because you're objectively the funniest person on the show.
Thanks,
And
man.
it's and you're very, very talented in that way. But to me, the one that stands out had nothing to do with humor, although I'm sure you said something ridiculous on the back half of it that we all laughed at. But it was more how you threaded a really difficult, elegant needle in real time with a person who's not meant to have like this ridiculously high wisdom score. And despite the fact he's a paladin, like obviously his charisma score is going to be high, but you didn't play Gelrek as like this, Lothario. He was just he was just there. He needed to do what he had to do.
He's a stranger in a strange
Exactly.
land. Yeah.
Exactly. I thought you did a great job. Those types of moments.
I actually have him painted, like right on my fridge. You want to go
Right on,
grab
dude.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, please grab Gelrek for the audience. I think a lot of us during COVID, there was a lot of role-playing games that, kind of took us through. Our campaign was called Stolen Sunrise, and a near and dear place in my heart with that campaign, that's for sure. Look at, there he is. Look at Gelrek, the man, the myth, the legend, the lizard himself.
Is that working? It's not
Hey,
working at all.
Oh, there it is. It focused.
Okay.
A paladin of vengeance.
I got to ride a giant T-Rex too. That ruled.
Right on. So, Chris, obviously now you've been playing for a really long time. You've forged this great community of fellow players, fellow GMs. As you move forward as a GM, as a player, do you have any ambitions of what you want to do next? Like, if you could choose, what are some of the things that stand out to you that you'd love to be able to experience, that you'd love to be able to do, you'd love to be able to create? I'd love to hear more from that from you.
I like playing devious characters sometimes.
You have every right.
I love mischief. I love chaos a little bit in games, and I love kind of like a palate cleanser of just like, oh, we've been the guys struggling, and now like, hey, we get to cause some struggling ourselves a little bit.
I see.
Without actually being sociopaths, but we'll see.
Fair enough.
Ambitions. I don't know. Just like, well, I guess if you have any other projects, why not?
Listen, you're always welcome on our shows. If we get OGL season 2, God bless us for that. But I mean more like, listen, I think the way that I see it, such as it is that you are at a minimum an excellent tabletop role-playing game player in a game, in a set of mechanics that is only getting more and more popular. To that end, you could have a seat at any major table that you want and fit in just fine in the world if you wanted it, right? Not that you'd, every single table is different and different needs, but I mean like of any major show or anything like that. Like, do you have any ambitions to
I have any like
in a professional sense, do this in a professional way, more above and beyond what we've done in StoryTogether? And this very well may, explode into something that's immensely popular, and God bless us if so. But if not, or even if so, like, is this something that you want to continue to take to the next level?
I'm always going to be doing. What is that even word? I'm always going to play the games. I'm always going to join my friends groups because my friends are, and you yourself included, are talented, driven people, and I like to work with people like that. if opportunities come by to do more, to be part of bigger projects, to be part of maybe something, maybe get my voice out there, that'd be a lot of fun. And maybe make money off it. That'd be even funner. I'll take them. But until then, I got responsibilities. I got work, and while the games are fun, I am dubious about risking it, and maybe that's timidity on my part. But maybe I'm just taking the safer option. But I like to work. I like to keep responsible, and I like to play games with my friends. And if more comes from that, I'll take it.
Fair enough. What if it does?
Oh hell yeah!
What would you do? You down?
If I could do voice acting and work without pants, that'd be great. Pants are a prison, Ian.
They are a prison.
Put that on a shirt.
So, here's the thing. I've made a lot of negative money from this, like a great deal of negative money.
Oh.
And I don't care. I am absolutely certain that this is the right thing to do. Whether I make a lot of money or I lose a lot of money, I know for a fact this is the right thing to do. I exclusively work on it in my personal time, right? I lose nothing by doing it. As a reasonable talent evaluator, is that you are an objectively funny person that role plays at a fairly high level at a bare minimum. In a world where tabletop stories are being, we're in the silent movie era of tabletop. As this grows and evolves, there's going to be a need and a desire for great players to tell great stories. While traditionally the onus has been on the GM, in the modern, or what we consider the modern tabletop role-playing game actual play experience, the players are equally as important. And if you look at any of the major shows that are out there, we have every single one of them. Almost every person at that table is absolutely incredible at what they do. So there will be opportunities because we're part of a movement that's creating demand, right? So I would advise you, as somebody who has a little bit of ambition, although I suppose it's for good reasons, is that you're allowed to have it. You're allowed to be ambitious. You're allowed to feel good when it comes true and feel bad if it doesn't. You can open yourself up to that. Not that this is an open mic therapy session. I would just simply suggest that you are worthy of it at a bare minimum. But not to harp on things that, you didn't come on a podcast necessarily to talk about with old Ian. I would say, as I think we move forward, I'd love to hear more from you about how you take some of those great experiences, some of which you talked about before, some of the great systems that you've worked with, because you play, real tabletop Warhammer. You've played many versions of Dungeons and Dragons, many different systems, including my own. What are some of the main elements that you're taking from those experiences that you're bringing to your own table as a GM and that you're bringing to other folks' tables as a player? I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, sure. I love to steal stuff from people.
Well, every GM does.
Yeah,
every
yeah,
does.
That's fine. That's the main thing. So I got 2 points, but I'm going to start with this one. Steal stuff. If you want to find something cool, if you see something completely unrelated to what you're working on and you like it, put it in there. You're God. You can do whatever you want at that point.
Right.
I was running that Warhammer game, and I was also playing Final Fantasy 16 at the same time. And there's a bunch of kaiju fights in that game, and they're awesome. They're over the top. And I'm just like, you know what? I want a doggone kaiju fight. So I just painted up a bunch of demons, big giant demons, and a bunch of giant robots, and I just had them show up in the campaign. This is an enemy you face now. This is how you're going to counter them, with your own giant robot. And that was a fun way to kind of make the story evolve. You take pieces from what... It's basically... You get to kind of show off to your friends things you like, and see if it sticks with them. See if you can make it work, and see if they like it. And I think I lucked out because everyone loves a good giant robot fight, so I can't really...
Well, we had one in one giant leap.
Yeah, we did.
That might have been a slightly more advanced one in certain cases, but hey, listen, you had it. It was the final boss in some respects, right?
It was. We fought
it really was.
Too. We fought a giant hand, and we're like, oh, cool. And then we realized it was a hand. I'm like, oh, there's way more to this.
Everything else attached to that, yeah.
Oh no. And I've seen Spaceballs. I knew what to do.
Exactly. I feel like there's a limited window of folks that love Spaceballs I'm very proud to be in that window.
Mhm.
Thank God. I've been raspberry jammed a couple times in my life. There's a strawberry. Don't hate me on the internet for that.
No,
It's one
you're
of
good.
those.
You're good.
Um, so Chris, obviously, you've observed a lot of these systems. I think you've played with a really diverse and really cool, group of people over the years. One of which is, I think it was either after high school or after secondary education, you decided to enlist, right?
Yeah,
And when you
after high
did,
school.
I don't think you literally brought D&D to the Army, but in a certain sense of the word, you did. So can you talk about what that culture was like, where you have downtime, you have a more extreme need to stay sane in
It
a less than sane environment?
on
Can you talk about, to the extent you can, what
Sure.
that was like, what some of like, again, we talked about bonding, right? And obviously tabletop stories are one of the great bonding experiences, but so too, the Army can be that for a lot of people. So now you're like doubling down on that. Can you talk for a bit about what that was like,
Sure.
in some of those experiences, some of
A-
those folks? I'd love to hear more about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's see. Okay, so I was in. Actually, this ties into a few things. I was Army intelligence, and I got after basic, I got sent to Fort Huachuca in Arizona, which is like the intelligence training center.
Yep.
Um, and they had a little trailer there that had a bunch. It was very tiny, like smaller than, I don't know, like a little bigger than the elevator we took in for OGL.
Oh
And
boy.
they had rows and rows of like D&D books, Warhammer starter sets, like all this other stuff. And surprise, surprise, there's not a lot to do in the desert. So like after we're done training, like the next day we'd like either paint or we'd get some games together, or we'd roll dice. Years later, when I deployed, we mobilized out of Fort Hood, and I ran one of my first campaigns there for just a quick one shot, like maybe like 4 or 5 sessions,
Okay.
and it was a blast. Like it was a lot of fun. Like I didn't like those guys were really good dudes. These were all the guys I deployed with. Like once we got into country, we all separated to different areas of it,
Okay.
and we didn't see each other, but we would email each other about the campaign and like other things we want to do, and they'd send me like what characters they want to do, like, oh, I want to do this, oh, like, oh, can we fight these monsters? And the answer was yes. And then
Absolutely, we can.
we got together, we played again. I still play World of Warcraft with some of those guys now and then too.
Nice.
I remember I was leaving, and like I had all my kit bags together, and like and Luke had given me a bunch of the old 5e D&D books, like the Monster Manual, the Dungeon
Mm-hmm.
Master's Guide,
Sure.
the Player's Handbook, and those went with me across the world, and they went with me wherever I went. Like I would either like I'd be on a plane, I'd be in a C-130 just reading them, and it was good. You're right, it did keep me sane ish. Um, it was like my hobby. It was like how I would plan. I'd plan campaigns like between like operations, and like when I had nothing to do and when I had way too much coffee, and or when I was waiting for a report to come back.
Mm-hmm.
It it was important. It was an important part of that.
In what sense? Like, was it a distraction? Was
Yeah,
it
we'd
a
have
diversion? Was it something more than that too? Like in the sense that you could look forward to it, and this was something that you could control. Can you, how do you feel about that?
it was a way for us to kind of like the reality there is a little rough. Surprise, surprise, but that was a way we can kind of have our own kind of heroic narrative that sort of kept us entertained, kept us together, kept us from kind of reveling in the misery of it. If that makes sense. If
So if
that's not
you
too much prose.
trust me, if anyone's verbose on the show, it's me. So don't worry about it. So were you, the Disney movie Hercules?
Nope.
Oh, you never seen Hercules? So for
I'm
those in the
lying to you.
audience,
Yes,
this will be
I
fun.
know
This will be
Hercules. I'm just
funny.
lying
I
to you.
promise. TM, funny, registered trademark. So they're walking through the ruined city of Thebes, and a guy comes up to their group and says, "Hey, Mac, you want to buy a sundial?" Basically, that's Chris with his D&D books, like deployed in the army. He's just got them like in his jacket for
Hey,
people
Mac,
to play.
you wanna roll initiative?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, kid, you
So,
want to be a dragonborn?
so do you get to still talk to those guys, play
Yeah,
any games with them? I mean, obviously you play WoW, which is
yeah.
great.
I was
Although I'm
just
not
talking
sure about the
to
current state of WoW, but
I
like,
was, I
do
was
you get
talking to
to
my
still
yeah, I was talking to my bunkmate the other day. Actually, good dude.
nice?
He's doing well. He's actually deployed now, so I'm not gonna tell his name or where he is, but like,
Yeah, it's
good,
fine.
super good dude. I did. It was D&D and pranks. Like those are the ways he kept saying.
Pranks.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you were very good at those, Chris. If I had any guess, any guess about that,
Yeah, we can I say one?
go ahead.
All right.
As long as you don't
So
swear,
no,
I
of
don't have to
course,
edit it out.
of course, I would never swear. I am an angel.
Do you have any
Um,
how many swears I had to edit out
I
of
had to
OGL
bleep
by
out
hand?
a lot. I'm so sorry.
This is bad. It's bad.
We had an officer in charge, and this guy was a bit of a dip,
I
and
see.
he would type like this,
Oh boy.
do like very slow, and he'd make a lot of people's lives harder than they needed to. So me, being the noble soul I am, had to mess with him a little bit. He was an okay dude. He was just kind of, you know. So I took the keys on his keyboard and moved them all one to the right, and then swapped the ones at the end to the front.
Like QWERTY is now
Yeah, QWERTY is now PLM.
QWER.
Yeah.
That's evil.
Yeah, it was. And the guy who was in the office with
That's
him
awful.
was in on it and knew how to type
Oh,
really
God.
well. And he'd be like, "What is this, man? What's going on?
Oh gosh.
Something wrong with this computer? Something wrong with this Iraqi keyboard?" And the other guy would
What's
like,
going on here?
and the other guy would type normally and be like, "Oh, it's fine. It's fine,
You
sir.
know,
Like, I don't see any issue with it.
you're right.
I'm not in anymore, so technically they can't punish me for that. Probably."
Well, it seems harmless. You know, at the end of the day, who's the victim here? Other than I think if anything, you created a small morale boost for the unit. So, you have that going for you. Well, I'm glad to hear that you were able to share, this hobby, this art form with those guys, and they gained something out of it, right? There's some positivity. I think what you did, whether you're conscious of it or not, is just uplift the people around you using tabletop. I think part of what we do here, whether, I think a lot of people use the word nobility ironically, right? I think in this case, I think it's noble to take something that is really fun and uplifting and a great diversion, and to give that to the folks around you when stuff is hard, right? So I'm going to make you really uncomfortable and give
good.
you a compliment and
I
say
love
that was
that.
really good of you.
Thank you.
Good for you, Chris. Good for you.
Hmm.
Proud of you, brother. So where I want to go next is, if you could invent the perfect, and it can be the perfect role-playing system, whether it's actual tabletop, digital tabletop, or the basis of, say, some other interactive form, like a video game or like a hybrid choose your own adventure type thing, what would be some of the elements that Chris Duffey would bring to life? Because when you're playing, what you like what levers you like to pull. What are some of those that you would want in your ideal system, your ideal framework of play that you think would just be killer for the table?
So that's fun. That's also like dependent on the setting in some cases, but
True.
my ideal setting is like, I'm a big fan of kind of black comedy and a little bit of horror, like huge fan.
Why do you and Luke love horror? The world is tough as it is, people.
Yes, I know. But like, because I want to present things that you
No, I'm
overcome,
kidding.
and I love monsters. They're so cool. But I think
true.
like, so one of the so there's a few mechanics I would bring in. Like, I've learned to love percentage systems
Okay.
a lot. Like I've like Call of Cthulhu, Dark Heresy, Imperial Maledictum, have been really Pulp Cthulhu have been really fun. Like
Yep.
it's like it looks daunting like when you first see that, but once you get it, you get it. So maybe that I do like things that incentivize role playing, like getting in character a little bit. Like what's that thing from 5e where you give like a token after someone's inspiration, right?
Inspiration. Yeah.
Yeah, inspiration.
Yeah.
And you brought that system over to OGL, right? Where you brought something similar to it.
Yeah. There
The
was like a
chips.
hybrid. It was like courage. Like
Yeah.
basically, it was a moment in a story where like the protagonist like puts their life on the line to do something special. Like it was less common. Like I think I reward you guys in different ways, but there was that where you're putting the chips at the center of the table
Yeah,
in that moment.
that's cool. I love that.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
like you're a character. Incentivize someone playing a character,
Yep.
and even if it's and that I think has also helped people that are a little shy like being a character. When they do
Yeah.
a cool moment, like they should be rewarded about that. Like, hey, cool, man, that's awesome. Like, hey, you come out of your shell a little bit. Here you go.
Yeah.
Or like a clever idea or something like that. I love kind of systems of corruption. So like a lot of
Yeah, like Shadow the Demon Lord as a pain in the butt.
I loved it. Like the more darker things you do, there's more of an effect to that. The lighter things you do, there's more effect to that. Kind of like Mass Effect 2 with the scars on your face.
I've literally never played an evil character in any video game ever.
I know.
I literally went to Luke's system and I'm like, Luke, where's the most evil place? I'm gonna purge it. You know, like I can't stand it. I can't play evil. Like
I'm going to.
And then you're like, Ian, good luck. I'm like, listen,
oh my god, I can't wait. Ian, play one evil campaigner character. I promise you, it's very fun. I promise you.
Everyone can call me the most vanilla noob of all time, and that's totally fine.
I would never call you a noob.
I played Baldur's Gate 5-10 times in my life. Neverwinter Nights, Knights of the Old Republic, Mass Effect, all of these games with basic morality systems. In my entire life, I've never played a bad guy.
Knights of the Old Republic is like, I love that game. And
Isaiah is always.
Dude, he has to have lightning. He has to have force lightning. Like
he has to, dude.
I'm afraid.
Yeah.
This gyro machine is fully operational.
Yeah.
What? Every time.
Every single time.
I love Knights of the Old Republic, but like the first one is like there's no gray. You're just a jerk. Like Like it's not like, oh, I'm pragmatic, so that's why I'm on the dark side. It's not like I kick babies. That's why.
Yeah. If you chose the dark side, it was pretty explicit.
You're just
especially once you get your memories back. Then it's like, oh my gosh, I'm doubling down.
This incredibly intelligent Sith Lord commander who's brought the galaxy to his knees, and he's just like some bully, like punching a kid for his lunch money. That's
also
your villain.
Straight up beat Mandalore, which is kind of a gangster. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, listen, I'd play an evil campaign if it was like a Call of Cthulhu type one where, Call of Cthulhu, it's like you can be objectively really good and you're just doomed no matter what. It's how much time you have. I hate that, by the way. It literally bothers my soul.
I know you do.
But if you did that, but we were evil, meaning our time was running out, right? That would be more fun, almost like a reverse heist in a morality sense. Like I'd be like, if my evilness was doomed, then like I could justify it in my head. It's just like, I don't know why I can't get past it. This interview is not about me. It's about you though. And
and then I will preach the world of evil. Like they always told you Satan would be handsome. And here I am.
Well, you have, I've been told this by several people close to you that are named Chris Duffey, that you're often mistaken for Henry Cavill when you go outside.
I've never said that ever. You see, Ian, you do have some evil in you. You just lied. You evil.
No, you see, I like mischief in the same way that you like. Mischief's great. Mischief's not evil. Adorable, raccoonish mischief. Like that's where I draw the line. But listen, there's another ambition. Henry, one of the world's foremost 40K fans, made the huge deal with Amazon to bring that to life, probably playing the Emperor.
I'm
right?
Super excited. Well, we don't know who he's going to play because there's a lot of characters there. I'm excited for it. I think he's a guy that like really likes. He's a dude. He just really likes what he's doing.
Well, maybe that's your wish. Your wish is to play 40K tabletop with Henry Cavill and his
I would
hand-painted
love to
miniatures.
play. I would love to play
There's
40K
your
tabletop
ambition.
with him. I would
If
love
that's
to
your
play with
wish
him.
to come true, we are now putting it in ink. You are going to play Warhammer with Henry Cavill somehow. We will figure out how to do it.
I mean, I got a plan. I'll just stalk him. It's fine.
He seems like a great guy. I can't imagine
he seems like a super
if
nice guy.
if we reached a certain level, like he'd be like, dude, I've spent my time in worse ways.
Yeah,
He literally
fair.
almost lost his Superman casting call playing World of Warcraft, which is highly relatable,
I
except for
love
the
that
casting
story.
call part.
Yeah.
But wasting your life part playing WoW, absolutely, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
As can many of us out there.
Look,
But listen, Chris.
Classic's really good.
When I played Classic when they re-released it, it was the same, but it wasn't the same because people treated it like a job. And that when we played it back in 05, or I played it in 05, I didn't play it in 04, I played it in 05. I was too sick in 04. But in 05, when I played it, I started playing my freshman year of college, and nobody treated it like a job. Like there were real people that are really, really good at it. This is pre-YouTube. So like Warcraft movies was really popular, and I was on Arthas, which was the most gangster server of all time, by the way. Look us up. Not me specifically, because it wasn't that good. But we had some of the great World of Roguecraft. Have you ever heard of that? That's Arthas. So. Pat, we had Rhett, some of the great server battles. So that's what we need to bring back. We need to invent a game that has Helldivers elements, but brings back intra-server rivalries, because those were some of the coolest stuff. I think tabletop actually has a really good frame of reference to do that, because tabletop is all about interwoven narrative threads, and a lot of how we relate to one another subconsciously is essentially narrative threads.
So I was on, speaking of that, I was on an RP server at I don't know, 2010s. And I played a character that hated the Blood Elves. Just hated them. But the only reason I was I was a human.
Human. Yeah. Okay.
And I was a human Death Knight because I was edgy and loved edgy stuff. I still do. I've not changed that much. And the reason I did that was not really because I hated elves, but only because their zone was the only place you couldn't fly. So that was the best place for world PvP campaigns. And you'd have you'd have entire guilds of people getting in formation and just fighting. It was awesome, man.
That's epic.
I don't think there's a lot of that happening right now, because there's a lot of sharding.
Job.
And, ways
they're making money. It's different when you treat it at a professional level. It takes the childlike fun out of it to a certain extent for me personally. That's why when Classic came out and you had all these people that were level 60 in a day and a half, and I'm like,
yeah, no, that was insane.
Dog, how you're 300 leather working in an hour. It's come on, I don't know. It's just not the same. When we started playing it, you weren't treating even if you rated, right? I rated Molten Core and Blackwing Lair.
I didn't know what I was doing.
Different.
I played a character. So I saw that boss Herod, that big shirtless guy with the axe, the helmet, and the pants.
Scarlet Monastery.
I didn't RP. Yeah, Scarlet Monastery. Yeah. I got his gear, and I dressed my character like him.
The shoulder,
including without the shirt armor, without bracers. So I was without a shield. So I was tanking shirtless, and that's not efficient at all. But I was 11, I think. I was this guy's cool. I want to look like this, because I had no idea how mechanics worked or gear worked. So just and it worked. I would just be in a dungeon with some random friends I made on there for hours and just playing that, and it would be fun. And they would oh hey, you look like that boss, and it was fun, man. It was a good formative memory for that.
That's classic. So what are the games that you're playing today that you think could have a big influence on your tabletop games, or maybe even more importantly, tabletop role-playing games in general? I can definitely name a few, but what are some of the ones that stand out to you?
So for when I was running campaign, I was looking at games that would be helpful. And then games I play in the future, I've already taken some from other things I played. Definitely Baldur's Gate 3. That's fantastic. I love that game. I still have not beaten it. I put it down because I think this winter has been really good for games, and I just keep jumping from different ones because I don't have a great attention span. Let's see. Rogue Trader came out, a Warhammer game.
Okay.
Amazing. Fantastic. The guys that made the Pathfinder games made this.
The Pathfinder tabletop made it?
No, the Pathfinder video games.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Wrath of the Righteous and King.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to play I highly recommend Wrath of the Righteous. Amazing.
Nice.
and those games also kind of inspired that.
What is it about those games? Like, what are elements of it that drew you
So
to it, or you think that you're gonna just blatantly steal mechanics
so
for
what
your
I'm
game? Like,
what
what
I'm going to
stands out?
steal. Okay, so for Rogue Trader, definitely certain parts because it is that sort of it's the setting I like and little bits and ideas I like. Like for my game last time, I set it in a space station,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't have any parts where like gravity was ever a thing, like it was ever an issue.
Mm.
And I feel like that's a missed opportunity. And next time I run a game in like a space setting, gravity is something I want to mess with. I want to like make a difficulty for the players or make it a tool they can use against their opponents, something like
Sure.
that. Like some of the horror settings, like some of the monsters, some of the character motivations, I think are very good, or could have been touched on more in the games, or at least something that I want to explore. Um, Character kind of agency too. Like those games are very open ended. Like there's a lot of options in those games, and I love it. Like you could be like for Wrath of the Righteous, for example, you could be anything from an angel, a golden dragon, to a lich, and so there's something there for everyone. And I highly recommend playing that game.
Nice.
Let's see, anything I'd bring in, anything from games in general.
Especially recently. What's top of your mind? What's inspiring you?
I love I love the player agency, even in Baldur's Gate 3, which is not restrictive at all, but like there's a lot you can do. It's a lot of work, but it seems like players seem to appreciate that sort of thing. They want like their choices to matter. They want things that they didn't expect to happen. They want to like back in the day, like me and some friends who play Fallout New Vegas, we all go to the lunch table and we'd all have talk about our different experience. And people want that back, I feel like, or at least I do. And I think that's a good thing that's kind of come back with these games.
Yeah.
Helldivers is a really good example because that's a great sandbox for people. Me and you had a huge blast the other day.
I listen. I'm gonna make a video about this tomorrow. I'm gonna post it this week, but
Okay.
I'm just gonna summarize what I'm gonna pitch to Wizards. Here's the deal. Here's what Helldivers, I think, the most genius thing that it proved is that worldwide co-op with role-playing inspiration can be immensely successful with the right elements, which is exactly what they've said. They said they're deeply inspired by tabletop. They have this GM, Joel, which I think actually his powers are overblown, but he has some authority on how to, tweak the narratives. I think if you triple down on that, here's what I would do. Okay. We played a campaign called Stolen Sunrise.
Yep.
The second to last part of that game was the culmination of a ridiculous amount of world building and diplomacy on your guys' part, where the major powers of the Western world, Western Faerun, banded together and essentially ran a crusade into the Shadowfell, right, to find the Shining Citadel.
Yep.
So if instead of Helldivers, you ever played Dragon Age Inquisition?
Yeah.
Dragon Age 3? Like on console, where like if you were going to use a power, you'd press like L2 square, L2 triangle, right? And if you're a fighter, like you do different things. If you're a mage, you do certain things. So for Hasbro, think of it like this. Think of a Helldivers, except instead of us fighting bugs and automatons on planets, you're in the different areas of the Shadowfell. And I made a really good, I think, lore accurate map on Roll20. It took me a very long time in Incarnate to create. But let's say you could deploy on the crusade into the Shadowfell as a D&D class in a live service, large scale battle setting.
Okay.
Like, and you were D&D
So
classes and you were fighting on
like
the
a
same
fantasy,
side to
like
advance. Oh, dude, it would be unbelievable.
I'd
Like,
be
it's
down.
live service. Then what you do on top of that is you massively double, triple down on the points of interest, the narrative elements, how what you're doing is affecting the overall battle, and then make sure the fighting is elite and fun. And that's where obviously Helldivers has just absolutely not a home run, but multiple home runs. I'm telling you, this is going to be the future, because you can see how really creative people are going to take the fundamental, like what they proved is successful, and apply it to different areas. And if and when that game exists, I will literally be the first one to buy it. I'm telling you, it's going to be amazing.
I think Vermintide is a good skeleton for that too. Like it's not to the extent as Helldivers, but that's a really good game, and that's a
Right.
good example of like a fantasy co-op setting.
Yep.
But yeah, I've been having a blast, and it is immersive. It's incredibly like you want to get in character with this game. I joined a random game, and there's some kid just pretending to actually be a soldier, like we're under heavy fire, we're under such fire, and then like I land, and I just like hit something with like I immediately blow up a fabricator. He's like, "Oh, good to see you, X3. Thanks." No worries, what we're doing. Like I'm so ready to get in character. I want to spread democracy. It's very fun. Like it's a really so far it's been a really fun community. I'm sure there's been some toxicity on it because it's online. It's going to happen. But I think for the most part, people are really excited about that game, and I think people are really. I'm excited. I'm excited to meet new people playing that game. I'm excited to play with the boys. We get on with the boys and the girls, and we play and we spread democracy, and we just kill bugs and robots. Like I don't have any moral quandaries for that. I'm just here to kill.
Yeah, listen, man. I love the game. I think it's the most fun I've had in a PvP game or PvE rather game in a very long time. In an online co-op setting, easily the most fun since Fortnite came out. Like original Fortnite. Like when we got addicted to original Fortnite, like that's what this feels like. They've struck gold with a framework, and I think it's that type of stuff. If they're borrowing from tabletop, we can borrow right back for our games and our stories and how we create immersion, how we create camaraderie, right? Their whole like spread managed democracy, when obviously everyone knows it's like clearly this is a fascist state. No one cares because it's not like this isn't a moral quandary issue. Like it's like friggin' Starship Troopers, and if like
Shut up, nerd. Shoot the bugs.
Terminator came to life. It's like, dog, like what choice do we have in all this? So it's like, move on, I guess I'm evil then, maybe my first,
there we go. There we go.
campaign, right?
Welcome.
I don't know.
Like there's a meme everyone always says to me, because I always play like even in tabletop, I like and Warhammer the War Games, I like to play the evil factions because I think they look cool, and I think their story
can't even do it in old world.
And someone sent me a meme the other day, and like Alice always tells me this, and she's like, it's like a soul leaving a body, and it's just like my moral compass when the bad guys have cool armor. Yeah, like, that's me at every opportunity.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, man, it's like I would love more games like Helldivers, but I think it's also a good thing to support Helldivers for like a good amount of time, because I think those games, like the work put into those games, should be rewarded by like players actively playing them.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, in terms of how that'll impact the future of tabletop and the games that we're playing, I hope it's super positive. I think if you have resources and talent, you should be able to take that and do something special in the tabletop community. If and when I get those resources, and if I had them right now, I'd already be working on that game that I mentioned, because you have to realize that when you're a first mover, the race to second starts the moment everyone realizes the green light's on. So I hope that people capitalize and realize that this is like legitimate genius stuff. And obviously, I think Larian, what they prove with Baldur's Gate 3, well, dramatically different, I think it's just as important. I think until we have true generative AI, and how our NPC, we can interact with our NPCs, and that generative AI is ethical based on the artists in the game.
Yeah, I'm a little dubious because going back to Helldivers, we see what happens when AI gets rampant.
Yeah, you get the automatons.
Yeah, that's a future I'd like to avoid, folks.
Well, no, listen, think about it like this. Let's say you're Larian Studios,
right.
Hundreds of really talented people trying to create a game of absolutely massive scope in like 6-7 years, right?
Right.
If you have artists and writers and a corpus of world building, generative AI could exclusively, or a large language model could exclusively train on that, not my work, Ian's work, not your work, Chris, or any other artist or anything else, but you could train it just on your team and what they're doing, and you could facilitate a much greater expansion of the written word, of art. And you don't have to approve it just because the system creates it. It just creates a much more rapid infrastructure to develop world building that's always in the power of the human to control. In
Maybe
about, I would say 3 to 5 years, we're going to get to the point where you don't even need virtual reality, but as long as you have a mic, you're going to be able to talk to your NPCs in real time. Not about choice.
maybe
It won't be like click a
no,
choice
I
like
got you. I
in the
got you.
Mass
I
Effect
got you.
way.
Like maybe I'm dubious on AI. Not just because like I think Terminators are going to enter the world because they will. Um, but I think it does take jobs away from like hardworking people. And I know the system you just proposed doesn't really take it doesn't really take away from their writing rooms, but I think that kind of there's an importance to. I think games are art. I think that argument's been won. Games are clearly art, and
Mhm.
I think the touch of the artist is the important. Like I'm not an art guy really, but like I think that touch, that human touch of the artist, is a very important facet of that. And I'm dubious on AI because I think it takes away from that. I think it kind of tarnishes that a little bit. Um, I will say I think it would be a good tool for mod users or mod creators, like with games like Starfield or other Bethesda games, because I think those guys are working on like a very low budget. They have an idea, but they don't have like the team. That is like a kind of a crutch of resources for independent work, maybe, but for like projects going forward that are being put a lot of resources on. There's a lot of people that are in these fields that want jobs, that deserve work, that deserve um, to have their effort put in, and I don't want anything that might take away from that, especially because I don't think people in like higher positions or people that are in funding positions will kind of have that same value of the artist's work that I think we should. They're just going to see, oh, this will make it a little bit more efficient. Like, and I get the understanding of that. The producer's work is also very important, but I think that should be kind of. I'm going off on a tangent here a little bit, but I don't think that given if someone is given the power to utilize AI, that they will use it in an ethical way or in a way that is actually like productive for the work or for the art.
Well, think about it like this. What about a holodeck? I boot up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Jordy. I boot up a holodeck of Sherlock Holmes with data.
Okay.
Moriarty appears in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
I can talk to Moriarty. Moriarty will talk back to me. Do you think a writer wrote every single one of those words? Of course not. There's generative AI behind that
Mm-hmm.
technology, right? So when you're creating an interface where you can have an unlimited series of interactions, a writer does not have the time to write out every possible scenario, which is why Baldur's Gate 3 is such an unbelievable achievement because of the sheer volume of choice that a writer wrote.
Yeah.
That's going to be considered, I think, the apex of what we did for humans in a little written series of choices until full responsible generative AI comes. Like, I don't think like whoever writes that Moriarty is going to still write the Moriarty. It's just how they create is going to look a little different than opening up, Microsoft Word.
I
And
think.
it's going to be more, they can write the core and all the lines and the ethos, but I think they're going to be using tools to sort of add on different layers that we wouldn't have thought possible a few years ago. That doesn't take away from the art. It doesn't take anyone's jobs. It just means that you're going to create exponentially more interactivity, in my opinion, or else, like, we've already lost the battle, by the way. So this moral quandary you may have, it's already over. Like, I
I
guarantee you
agree.
they're making this game.
I agree on that point. I think that is. I think we are kind of fighting the tide on that. But I think we should fight the tide. I think it's a worthy fight to fight the tide. Um,
What are you fighting though? Like, tell me, like, what are you, whose jobs are you saving by preventing the holodeck? That's not how they see their budgets. They see output. They're going to, when the expectation becomes all of your NPCs are awesome and fully fledged and you can converse with them in a highly organic way, you're going to need more writers.
but you've already made the point, though. I don't know if that's true. Um, you've already made the point, though. We are here singing the praises of Baldur's Gate 3 because of all the human work that was put into that.
Yeah.
Right? That we're saying that should be the standard. We're saying that should be like a pinnacle of that. And
Probably will be.
I abhor, if that's the correct word to use for this. I do not like the idea of finding ways to mass produce that. It seems it is separating more. It's taking away the kind of connections between consumers and the people that have crafted this.
Hmm.
And I think it does take away a job, because I think there's a lot of people that work in these industries, and you don't need a lot of people to work on this. Like, I've seen an AI do an art thing, and they do a passable job for that stuff, but it's also like work that's been learned from like human hands, and it's taken like someone who would like work blood, sweat, and tears on that while they're like trying to feed their cat or trying to feed their kids. I'm trying to feed my cat. Like a couple weeks to put that together and put down another commission and work on that. And you just put something in a chat box and it pops it out. And I get that's convenient. It just seems callous. And I don't know if I don't think I'm arguing from logic here, but I don't think it's about.
That's not how they're going to create in the future. They're not going to have this weird chat bot interface being like, I want Moriarty to look cooler. And then it just like outputs like this crap image in Midjourney. That's not what I'm talking about.
To look more daddy.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, exactly. That's what you,
this is the internet. It'll be gross.
It's not, dude, that in the future, that's not the type of tooling that I'm referring to. If you're going to create a fully fledged world at that scale, I genuinely think you're going to need more jobs. I can't prove that, but as someone who's been in the business world for quite some time and has, I think, a pretty decent first and secondhand exposure to how things are created at a high level, I would suggest that it's going to take just as much, if not more effort than what Larian put in to create a fully interactive world than it does now. And in order to do that, you have to empower our best and most talented creatives with additional tools. That's literally all I'm suggesting. I understand the debate. The last thing that I would want are creatives to lose control, their jobs, for art to die, or anything like that. Think about it. It's me, for Christ's sake. I literally created anyway, not to go down a rabbit hole. I just think like I'm a creative. I've created stories. If I were to use the tool, what I would want a set of tools that helps me bring what I want to life at an even grander scale. Not like I'm just typing in prompts into Midjourney or I'm in like some GPT-4 chatbot. That will be considered like primordial ooze compared to the tools that I'm talking about when you're creating these games. It's going to look and feel a lot more organic and artistic than what it may feel to a lot of folks. Although I'm glad there are people like you that are defending that line, because it's really hard to kind of navigate the gray area between them. And so if there are a lot of people like you holding that line, it means it'll be much harder to infringe on that space from, more avaricious people that are obviously going to attempt to do so along down the line. That's clearly going to happen. It's already happening. That's why one of the biggest stipulations in the Hollywood writers' strike is you can't use AI, right? Like, that sort of stuff.
I've been growing pretty cynical about it. I think it's going to happen. I don't want it to happen. And I hope I push back. I'm not an artist. I don't know the biggest details about it. There's something about it that just kind of like instinctually it's like, you're looking at an uncanny valley effect sort of deal. And I don't think there's something deeply wrong about that. It's like seeing Avatar in live action for the first time. It's just wrong.
No comment, because I like to be nice to people on the internet.
No, I mean, we have Night Shyamalan one. We can be mean about that.
Oh, okay.
I don't know about this.
Fair enough.
I'll be mean to it in 10 years, but
fair enough. So, like, as a thought experiment, if you were transported into the holodeck on the Enterprise D, is that soulless to you? And you like crafted, you got to cosplay as the Emperor in 40K or like whatever Space Marine you wanted, and like you get to have some incredible
like a skeleton soulless? Whenever I want, Ian.
That's me. That's what you're doing right now. I'm kidding. It's not soulless because they're using a fundamentally different approach to creating stories that we just don't get.
Maybe.
It's going to change so much. Like, here's the thing. If you give me $100 million and a team of about 150 creatives, I would spend a decent amount of that creating a system of large language models that only my team can use, that's predicated on only our art, to help bring to life a much more robust world. And I guarantee you that world would feel artistic. It's about the people. It's about how you empower those people. They're not going to sit there and become friggin' prompt engineers. They're going to sit there and like do all this incredible cool stuff in the world. It's just a different tool. It's like I feel like it's the same argument to say like 15 years ago, oh, you're going to use Photoshop to clean up your images. That's not organic. I just feel like the tools that we're going to have are going to be considered more on that road than this sort of phase 1.5 that we're in right now in March of 2024. The game's going to look a lot different, I feel like, for creatives, but you still have to hold the line because people are going to always push it. So the line still must be held. My 2 cents. Maybe I'm the evil guy on this one, Chris.
Yeah,
Maybe this is my
we
chance
got
to
there.
shine.
We got there. You're
my
bowing
chance
to
to
our
shine.
robot overlords, Ian. This is ridiculous.
I think if we have robot overlords and they it's
God damn it.
It's best to bow. I'm kidding. Absolutely not. I'd die trying. But Chris, one last question.
Sure.
If you could have any one thing come true coming out of tabletop other than playing 40K with Henry Cavill, which is your now life side quest, what would it be? What would it look like? That's my last question to you.
I would like to get into voice work, and I keep making excuses for myself. Like I gotta be busy. I gotta do this, and again, that is my own timidity. And maybe it'll happen, but I don't know. Maybe OGL is a step in the right direction. We'll see.
Well, I think in terms of showing off your voices, I think if you had an actual play or other media like a one shot, or you streamed on Twitch, right? You would be doing a much wider and more diverse set of voices. And just so you know, audience, Chris is a phenomenal. You can call it a voice acting, call it whatever you want. He does voice at a high level, like Robin Williams and Mrs. Doubtfire type stuff.
I do.
What do you mean you do voices? No, but for real, I mean, you're genuinely very, very, very good at it. I think you bring them to life. I think it's really hard. Like, I think one of the reasons why people are drawn to Matt is his diversity and range of voices and how consistently he can call them on command facilitates immersion really, really well.
Yeah, no,
I think you do that really well as well. So I would want that. If that's your thing, then I will note it in the logs, and I will feed it to an AI algorithm, and I will poison it with its lack of. I'm kidding. The opposite of that. I wish nothing.
That Chris has 6 fingers. That's wrong. It's an AI generated Chris.
Yeah, AI Chris for sure, dude. Well, I just think you're really good at it. And I want you to be happy. I want you to be fulfilled. And I think, in an ikigai sense, it's a world for you to explore. And I would want that for you very much. And I think you'd be excellent at it if you decide to go in full bore.
Thanks, man.
So you have the voice acting and you have 40K with Henry Cavill. I think this has been an immensely productive conversation to draw those things out of you.
It's been a lot of fun. It's been a good
talk,
man.
Well, I appreciate it, Chris.
It's good to see you again. I can't wait to see you and hang out with you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it very much. Obviously, always a pleasure to play with you. Pleasure to have you on today. And onward and upward, my friend.